3 days passed. 3 long, crawling days. I followed Clara's instructions exactly. I sprinkled the ash in every corner of my apartment. I left the hall lights on, no matter how high the bill crept. And I didn't sleep a second between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. Still, I could feel it watching. Not always directly, but in the silence between the ceiling creaks, in the static that danced across my TV when I left it on for company. And worst of all, in my name, whispered, drawn out, over and over again. Jonah. Sometimes from the vents, sometimes from the drains. Once, directly from under my bed. I kept telling myself I was imagining it. Until the call. Unknown number. 2:46 a.m. I shouldn't have answered. Jonah. The same voice, wet and raw and impossibly deep. I froze. Why pretend to be afraid? You've always belonged here. You opened the door. Click. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. It wasn't just hearing my name now. It was learning me. Becoming more precise. More real. I stayed in Clara's apartment the next night. I needed safety. She let me in without a word. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't need to. You woke it fully, she finally said, staring at a circle of soot she'd drawn on the floor. It's latching now, trying to pull itself back into this layer. I didn't understand. Why me? She gave me a long, pitiful look. Because it knows you, it always has. I wasn't special. I wasn't cursed. I was familiar. The dweller had seen me before. It had waited, deep in the cracks, in the whisper-thin gap between stone and shadow, for someone like me to return. Or someone exactly like me. Clara reached under her bed and retrieved a box, heavy, locked with clasps and bound with leather too old to be synthetic. Inside were photos, old ones, from the 1960s, the 1940s, even one in faded sepia from 1908. The building hadn't always been apartments. Once, it had been a psychiatric institute. Before that, a poorhouse. And in every photo, every damn one, was a man. My face. Sometimes younger, sometimes older, but undeniably me. I staggered back. This isn't possible, I whispered. Clara lit another candle. Time doesn't move the same down there, she said. When the dweller touches you, it marks you, folds you into its pattern. You aren't Jonah Smith, not really. You're a loop. A what? You're its favorite. I didn't stay that night. I couldn't. Something inside me screamed to get out. I took a bus to a motel 3 towns away. Paid in cash. Didn't tell anyone where I went. That first night, I thought I'd escaped. The room was quiet. I even managed to sleep. But at 3:11 a.m., the TV turned on by itself. Just static. Then a face, not fully formed. Just the shape of one, looking at me. And then, Jonah. I tore the plug from the wall. It kept playing. I screamed, threw a lamp, shattered the screen. The voice didn't stop. Until 4 a.m. Then it cut out, like a light switch flipped. I knew what this meant. There was no running. Clara was waiting for me when I returned. She had aged, not metaphorically, literally. Her hair streaked with gray that wasn't there 2 days ago. Her hands trembled. You crossed it, she said. It followed you. Then how do I end it? You don't. She paused. But you can seal it again. It's always hungry, always reaching, but it only feeds when it's remembered. I had to forget, or make the building forget. The dweller wasn't just a monster. It was a memory, carved into stone, walls, blood. If I could erase those traces, the cracks, the whispers, the knowledge, it might fall asleep again. Maybe for good. But there was a cost. One Clara didn't explain. until I went back downstairs. We descended into the sub-basement together, same iron door, same narrow hall, except this time we weren't alone. Others were there, not alive, not dead. Some half-merged into walls, whispering endlessly. Some crawling along the ceiling with blank porcelain eyes. Clara didn't flinch. She pulled a rusted dagger from her belt and carved a symbol in the stone near the old tally mark wall. The dweller pulsed behind it, furious. "It remembers us now," Clara said. "We have to make it forget." "How?" She handed me a jar. Inside, ash, bone, fragments of photographs. "Your memories? Your name? Your place in the story? What are you saying? Feed it. Forget yourself. Become no one. And maybe it'll sleep." It wasn't a choice. It was the only path left. I took the jar, walked to the pulsing wall, and spoke. "I give you everything." The wall opened. The dweller leaned out and smiled. Then everything went black. I woke up in a hospital. No name, no memory. The staff said I was found wandering near a construction site, incoherent. They asked my name. I didn't have one. I asked about Clara. No one knew who that was. I asked about the building. There was no record, just an empty lot, no apartments. Number 6B. But sometimes, in the stillest parts of night, I hear a hum and a whisper. Jonah. Months passed. I was given a new name, Michael. I didn't choose it. Someone at the hospital said I looked like a Michael. I didn't argue. I found work at a bookstore in a quiet Connecticut town. Something peaceful about the scent of old paper, dusty shelves, quiet conversations. But peace is a lie. You don't truly forget a name like Jonah, not when it's carved into the soul. At night, I had dreams, not fleeting images, but fully fleshed out nightmares. The kind that feel more real than memory. I stood in a hallway lit by flickering bulbs, heard the buzz of static, the slow, wet sound of movement in the walls. Sometimes I saw Clara. Her eyes blackened, her voice stretched unnaturally. "You're not gone," she whispered. Other times, I was back in apartment 6B, opening the door to the basement again, over and over. I told myself it was trauma, residual effects of whatever breakdown I'd had. The doctor said memory loss was common after high psychological stress, that I should move on. So I tried. Then, the first letter arrived, no return address. Inside was a photo, black and white, old, water damaged. It was a group of people in a long abandoned apartment hallway, and there, tucked between them, was me, or Jonah, staring directly into the camera, expression hollow, eyes blank. The back was scratched with 3 words. "He still remembers." I burned it, told myself it was someone's sick joke, but more came. Clippings from old newspapers, mentions of apartment 6B, mysterious disappearances. A note in every envelope. "You left the door open." Then one morning I woke up to something worse. My walls, clean and white the night before, were now cracked. Not in the paint, in the concrete beneath. And from the cracks, a whisper came. Jonah. The dweller had found me. Across towns, across names, across identity and time. I hadn't escaped. I had only delayed it. I tried reaching out. Clara's apartment? Gone. The address didn't exist anymore. Even the city block where the building once stood had been leveled. But it hadn't helped. It wasn't about the place anymore. It was about me. So, I went back. Not to the building. That was impossible. But to where it began. The void beneath reality. The thin place, the memory. At exactly 3:33 a.m., I returned to my apartment and stood in front of the bathroom mirror. The light flickered. The air went cold. I saw the reflection change. The walls behind me rotted, the lights dimmed, and in my eyes, something moved. I reached forward and whispered, "You want me? Come take me." The mirror shattered, and I was pulled through. I found myself in a space that wasn't space. Not dark, but void. Not empty, but filled with hunger. The dweller stood before me, vast, formless, with hundreds of faces cycling across its shape, and one voice that echoed louder than them all. Welcome home. It offered me a choice, not through words, but through knowing. I could return, but not as Jonah, not as Michael, as a watcher, a vessel for it, an echo, reborn into the world to feed it, a collector of names, of memories, of people. Or I could stay, locked forever in this looping memory, forgotten, alone. I remembered Clara's words, "You're a loop." Maybe I was. Maybe we all are. So I made my choice. I screamed. I reached into the dweller's heart and I tore it open. Light exploded. Sound bled into itself. I felt every memory I'd ever lived and every version of me from every photo pull into one moment, unified. Jonah, Michael, the others, all together. And then, nothing. I woke up in my bookstore. It was morning. The sun poured through the window. Everything looked normal. Too normal. The calendar said 2021, not 2025. The phone rang. I picked it up. "Jonah?" the voice said. My blood froze. "Is this Jonah Smith?" "No," I said quickly. "You've got the wrong number." Silence. Then, "No, I've got the right one." Click. I stared at the phone for minutes. Went to the mirror, checked my face. It was me, Michael. But behind my reflection, a crack had begun to form in the wall. Epilogue. This is the part of the story where people expect closure, where evil is defeated, where the hero escapes, where the haunted house burns down. But that's not this story, because some places remember. Some creatures don't live in the world. They live in our stories. And as long as you've listened this far, as long as you've heard the name Jonah, as long as you believe, he can find you, too. The dweller feeds on belief. And now, you remember him. Subscribe to this channel if you want to stay safe. New stories drop weekly. Maybe one will save you in time, maybe not.